All right, so hey everyone, welcome to the Be Insightful in Technology podcast, and I'm your host Shakiria Johnson, also known as Shy, and I'm here to help you gain knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to be insightful in technology. So today's guest is what I like to see as a techpreneur, an entrepreneur, many things. Honestly, I had got his contact back when I was still in high school, and I've been able to continue this. He was actually one of the OGs that I wanted to have on the podcast, and I finally got him here. So I am gonna let him introduce himself, tell us some of the amazing things about him. So, who are you? What do you do? And where can people find you?
Hey, Shy. Yeah, able to finally connect and talk. So I am Rob Betzel. From a technology perspective, I founded a company called Infinity Network Solutions, actually a little over 20 years ago now, actually 22 years ago now, that I ran until 2019 before I sold it. But I have been a lifelong technologist and entrepreneur. I'm in Macon, Georgia. I actually am now an entrepreneurial coach, consultant, and angel investor. So that's what my day job, my life is greatly different than where it was when you and I first connected, when you were still in high school, and I guess the CEO of your high school and I connected over where you were trying to go in your technology journey. So that's how we got connected. But yeah, I ran a tech services company. We focused originally on government and education projects. We did large school and government building technology stand-ups, and would turn them over to the IT department, and ultimately became the IT department for around a couple hundred small and medium-sized businesses throughout the Southeast. Ended up with a little over 30 employees. My business partner. I founded the business by myself. I had an entrepreneurial seizure. And then my brother, about a year later, graduated from UGA and joined me. Turned out he could sell. I could be a technologist. And so we grew that business together. Ultimately, my baby sister actually joined us as our HR and executive assistant. So she did all of our recruiting for us. So it was a family business, ultimately selling it to Hargrave Communications, which is now owned by Cable One. They purchased us back at the end of 19. And so since then, I've transitioned into coaching and consulting and angel investing. So I'm not sure that's everything you want to know who I am and where I'm from, but there's at least a 2-minute version of it.
All right. So what I hear is you've done a lot of things. You have experienced like bringing up a company, selling it, and now you're investing into other companies and coaching others. So another thing, like when you did first initially start Infinity Networks, what did you expect it to become? Like how big did you expect it to be?
So I jokingly say that when I started it, I truly had an entrepreneurial seizure. So if you've never read the book, The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, there's a book called The E-Myth Michael Gerber wrote, and he refers to the fact that technical people, so technologists, plumbers, electricians, will have an entrepreneurial seizure. And we generally think that we can do it cheaper, better, and faster than whoever we're working for. And the joke is if you could do one of those three, you shouldn't do the other two. So I thought I would just go out on my own and be a technologist, and I would do consulting work and support myself. And what it turned out to be was that, initially that was where we were. When I was by myself, I had a couple of clients, ran around fixing PCs, and I really enjoyed being a firefighter, a superhero, right? Clients had their technology screwed up. You fly in, you fix it, you leave. Somewhere down the road, you might get paid for it. And that sort of went on for about a year and a half. And my brother joined me. And that's, initially it was, okay, you worked with in the past. Let's see if you can bid on some stuff and get us additional work. And he kept me a little bit busier. Ultimately, you're doing a lot of low voltage projects. And that's when I think we sort of went from, let's just see if we can make a living, be able to pay our rent, afford to go out on the weekends, have a good time, to maybe there's something here. So probably about the year 2.5 or so, we actually took a napkin and we wrote my 45th birthday down on it, which was in 2019, and wrote down a number and said, wouldn't it be cool if? And the deal always was the day we could sell the company for that number or more, we would. And that was actually how, and we got there 2 months before my 45th birthday. So we started, it was just this thing. We started having this idea of like, maybe one day it would be this really cool thing, we could sell it. And then we started about how to grow it. And I think that like most entrepreneurs were really good technicians of our skill, but we're not really good people managers, especially technologists. We're not wired a lot of times to that's not what we're skilled around. We're technically qualified, but people qualified, maybe not. I'm fortunate that I went to Georgia College. I have a liberal arts university degree, which is I have a lot of humanities classes under my belt, which helps me with people. But we grew like every other small company. We grew to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 employees. And then I couldn't figure out why they all didn't know what I was thinking in my head, and why couldn't they do it as fast as I could do it or as good as I could do it. And then they would quit, or I'd fire a few and we sink back down. And we did that for the first few years until I realized that I was the problem. And so we started hiring other people that could help lead and began building a team. And so I'm not sure where I got the idea of like how big it could be. I did know that I never wanted to run a company, over 50 employees. Like I knew what I liked, which was starting something, founding something, being high touch with something, really helping it grow. But once it got good, and like we had a leadership team in place, and they knew how to manage, and we were managing the numbers, and we had great people in place. What I love to do, which is tinker and try new things and take risk, really stopped being what we could do. And so that's really another reason why selling the company made sense, because my brother and I talked and said, he loves consistent operations. I don't. And I was like, this isn't working for me, because I really need to be starting something, and I need to be breaking things. I'm naturally wired to break things or find things that are broken and fix them. And so you just said, I don't want to run a 100% company. That isn't fun to me. And I think so many people think they got to go build the next Tesla. And my answer is like, no. Like there's some of us who love to start things. There's some that like to run things, and some people like to scale things. And so I got lucky that we were able to build it, have a great successful business, great client, great employees, a lot of great memories and learning opportunities for me. But it came a time when it was time for me to do something else. And so I did know that I never wanted something big, because it just wasn't in my DNA. I'd seen other entrepreneurs around me build these 100, 200 person companies and just were miserable. They were just miserable because they weren't allowed to do what they loved to do. And so they were off, not even paying attention to the companies doing other things. And so anyway, I knew I wanted to grow it. I knew I wanted to do cool things. I knew I wanted to be of service to people. And I think that's ultimately if I had to pick sort of my number one value, past family, really is service of others. And so I love always being of service, being available to people. And so that scratched an itch for a while, and now I'm scratching it a different way.
Oh, okay. So I want to trail back to how you were able to realize you need to have that team full of leaders who can, help manage people and communicate with people. Like, I am trying to get to the point where I am able to communicate with people like a lot better than what I do now. Because I'm like, I do understand being such a technical person where it's just like you want to focus on the things that need to be broken, need to be fixed and things like that. And you're just like, how's somebody getting this? So when it did come to that realization that you did need help with people, how did you kind of structure it to finally bring someone in?
Yeah, so I was fortunate that I'm also a lifelong student. So I love the art of study. I don't love to study. I love to learn. Like I'm the guy who says show me how you do it, and that's cool, and then I move on. I'm not going to become an expert at something. I love to tinker with things. So I think that I've always enjoyed finding smarter people and spending time with them. And I've been fortunate that a lot of people poured time and energy into me that were further along than that I got to observe. But I think what it came down to, I joined a peer group, which is as you're an entrepreneur, you're sort of lonely. And in my space, there was an organization that actually put other business owners in a room once a quarter, companies about the same size, and you got to spend time with them for a couple of days. And it's sort of a therapy session. You sort of get that you get to whine in a room. It's okay to whine, and you get told when you're being an idiot by people that aren't your employees. So you get so I think a lot of it came from being in that room and listening to smart people, and then really get a chance to study personalities, right? There are 1,000 personality communication tools. I'm a giant fan of DISC. So if you love Briggs, if you love DOTS, if you love Judgment Index, they're all great. I love DISC. There's actually a book called Make a Difference by Dr. Larry Little that uses animals to assign communication types to people. And so that's actually a lower level than DISC that we use in Infinity. So we found this tool and sort of said, hey, I'm a high D, high I. So I'm a task-oriented people person. So I don't care about the details. I don't connect well one-on-one with people. A lot of people, I love crowds. I always say I like to hear the audience applaud. I don't need to hear thank you. So it's sort of the way I like crowds, but I love getting to the result. I'll burn a forest down to get to the other side. And I communicate that way. And so what I learned was not everybody consumes information that way. And as the leader or the communicator, it's my responsibility to adjust my communication style to the person I'm trying to communicate to. And so really understanding DISC or any of the tools and saying, okay, here's how I am. And if I want to be successful, I need to adjust to my audience, the individual or group. And so there's a saying that says you have to say something 7, 17, or 77 times for someone to hear it the first time. I don't know which one. By the way, it's somewhere in between those numbers. And so you've got to get really good at repeating yourself in different ways so that each person you're talking to connects with the information effectively. So where I think it became formal for me was that understanding of like, this is who I am. And I've taken lots of it. I love Judgment Index also. Again, there's a number of tests and assessments that I love using, and they're part of our hiring process, not to weed people out, but to understand if someone was joining a group, what would they be bringing? What would they be missing? What would we might be overemphasizing the group or underemphasizing the group? So each one of those things, I think Colby and the rest of them really help. And so we used them, we taught through them. And so my brother is a DC. So he's a results-oriented, task-oriented person that loves the detail. The trick with him is he only loves the detail until he's done with the detail. So if I, as a dancing monkey who don't like detail, come into the room to tell him something, I got to bring all this information with me. And I don't know if he wants it all or if he wants a little bit of it. And if somebody has to spend a lot of time to like devote energy to something I don't like doing, which is getting detail together, when he kind of go, I don't need more of that information, it would upset me like, hey, I worked really hard on this detail. But again, just understand it's how you work. So I think communication, if I didn't tell you anything, like just taking advantage of some of those free or one or two assessment tools, really understanding how you communicate and how other people communicate, and really understanding how to adjust. So for my high S's in the world, I had an engineer who's a high S. I had to slow down. I had to ask him if he had time to talk. I had to sit down. I had to give him room to drive the conversation. And I had to know that when the conversation was done, he was likely still thinking about it. And 3 days later, he's going to come back to my office and start the conversation back up again. And I thought the bloody thing was finished. Because in his way of thinking was he had to internalize it, think about it, and contemplate it, and then come back and talk about it, where I could just be like that. So different ways of approaching things. So again, communication tools, just if anybody ever gives you an opportunity to attend those classes, take them about yourself, but then also take them from the perspective of how everyone else would appear, you would appear to them, and how would you adjust to basically connect with them. And that's one of the greatest arts. And it's when I speak in front of a room of 100 people, 200 people, a lot of what I'm doing is constantly adjusting my message, trying to keep the whole audience engaged. When I'm talking to 2 or 3 people, I'm doing the exact same thing.
Okay. So honestly, when you mentioned the DISC assessment and the Myers-Briggs one, I took the DISC assessment, and like I didn't even know how to go through it.
Yep.
Like I just saw, I think I was like a high I, and the other ones I don't even remember. I have the document. I was looking over it like
you're an extroverted people person by first nature. So, and not what your second letter might be, but right. But so DISC is difficult. It's a nuanced, complex tool. Without someone who really understands it, I think it's a tool that's hard for you to just go. So if I listen to this podcast, don't run out and spend $110 taking a DISC assessment. Some of these things are good for you to review, but I would tell you if you're going to do anything, just go look up. Again, if I don't get $1 for this guy's book, but Dr. Larry Little's Make a Difference book. It is a really short read, and he gives a free assessment. It is not double-blind tested, but it uses animals. So I'm a lion monkey. My brother is a camel lion. James was a turtle camel. And so everybody, if you notice over my shoulder here, there's a monkey. We used to have those little stuffed animals in all of our offices that told everybody what your personality, what your style was. And so people knew when they were walking in how they needed to adjust. So go use Make a Difference. That's probably the great start. If your company you're working for uses one, don't care what it is, lean into that one. They all give us great insight and allow us to adjust our communication and sort of energy consumption methods.
Okay. Oh, there's another thing that has been like dying on my mind to really ask you about. So what is it like having a family business? Like working with your brothers and sisters, like how did you guys eventually, come with me like, hey, I actually want to help you out with your business. I really want to be a part of this. So, build that family legacy here. How did that happen?
Yeah, so my brother graduated with a finance degree from UGA. The joke is he tried to get a 7th football season, and mom and dad said no unless you pay for it. You want to be a student one more time, get more set of tickets. So he graduated with a finance degree and didn't want to go into banking, and just said, hey, you're starting this thing. What if I came to Macon and sort of help? And my brother and I are uniquely different. We weren't best friends. We each had our own thing, and we always did, right? We went home. We lived together for a very short period of time, but we generally went home and had different interests. And so I think for he and I, it's always been pretty professional. But early on, we did treat it poorly, right? We would fight like brothers in the office. The joke was they kept waiting for us to get baseball bats and chase each other. And I think we had to learn where that wasn't good. So my brother and I had a lot of years of really trying to understand each other and really trying to appreciate each other's unique abilities. Dan Sullivan's a strategic coach, founder, who talks about unique abilities, what we're uniquely qualified to do. I'm great in the public. I love being in front of people. I love big ideas. I love to brainstorm. I love to get end results. I love all of those things. I'm highly empathetic. I need you to like me. My brother is very process driven. He's very systematic. He's very driven by goals. He doesn't need you to like him. He needs to get the results right. He will do them in the right way. And so we learned to basically, okay, well, why don't you run the day-to-day company, Brian? I'll go be the guy who runs out the sales team. I'll go out and fight the fires. I'll go inspire the community to work with us. And we'll talk once a week, and that'll be enough. And so I think that's when we had to learn that. My sister joining us really was a sort of an interesting trajectory where she went through her career. But ultimately, we needed an executive assistant we could trust, someone to come in and really act on our behalf. And she ultimately ended up taking over HR, which is something that's really near and dear to me, hiring and recruiting. And so she became our hiring recruiter. She actually now has worked for several companies in their recruitment department. She's really good at finding people, connecting with them, inspiring them to want to work someplace, helping them through that early stage process. And so we all respected each other's roles and sort of said, this is how things work. 8 to 5, it's boss, owner, partner. My brother and I, the other thing was, we were 49, 51% partners. So I owned 51% of the company, he owned 49%. We never talked about our ownership from 8 to 5. So we were employees of the stockholders from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So when I, as a CEO, I answered to the stockholders, he answered to me. And so the way we treated it was, there is my joke was, he came and yelled at me, I'd kind of go, are you yelling at me as the president or as one of the stockholders? My response would be radically different. And so he and I just had to learn, sort of disconnect that. Your job, your ownership does not begot your job. He actually could have gotten me fired as CEO. We had a system for a board of advisors that he and I had, that if he thought I was doing a poor job, they could actually terminate my employment of my own company. And the deal behind that was to keep me honest, keep me showing up, keep me work hard. So, but family's unique. It's definitely, you've got to be willing and able to be honest. I think you have to learn to compartmentalize. You have to learn to have open and honest conversations at different times and just sort of say, okay, I'd like to talk to you as my brother. We didn't talk business during family events, so birthdays, holidays. We never talked business because it was family time. If he and I were going out to play golf together, the question is, are we going as the employee, Rob and Brian, the board, the stockholders, Rob and Brian, or as brothers? So that just sort of set rules. There's a lot of just being sort of oddly open and honest. Was the big, but I don't think I could have done it without him. So my brother being so much different than I, he drove the success I saw, and I saw things that he would have never tried.
Ooh. That is an amazing combination there, that basically all of you guys were able to come together and make this flourish. Like, congratulations to all of y'all. So let's dive deep into a little bit of the background. How did you discover your passion? Like, when did you initially start basically getting into like technology?
So I'm going to give you the long stories I've given you for everything else so far. So in high school, I wanted to be a marine biology major. So I applied to the University of Guam, University of Australia, Texas A&M, Florida Tech, FIT, and Morehouse. Those are the 5 universities that had a marine biology program. Applied to those 4 universities. I did not get into Guam. I got into Australia, but decided that was too far to go. Texas A&M wanted me one day after graduation, so I would not have gone on my senior trip. Did not get into Morehouse, and I got into Florida Tech. So I ended up down at Florida Tech as a marine biology major. And I'd never been away from home. Had grown up in a small town on a dairy farm. My father's a dentist. My grandfather was a dairyman in town. A lot of entrepreneurial family members. But I wanted to go out and I wanted to do research. I loved the ocean, loved scuba diving. So I went down there, and it turned out that I enjoyed Florida a little more than my classes. So I ended up flunking out of Florida Tech. I did not do well down there. So I came home to Georgia College and decided to be a journalism major, because I'm going to write about scuba diving because there's so much more money. I also realized I'm a capitalist in Florida. I like money. So I was going to write about scuba diving because there's so much more money in that. And when I was there dating a girl, I was taking my computer apart one Saturday afternoon, and we weren't going to go out. I was trying to get it put back together because I was upgrading, who knows, the RAM, the hard, I don't know what stupid thing I was doing with it for the 27th time. And she said, either stop doing this and take me on a date, or get paid to do this. I'm like, you can get paid to do this? And so she took me over to the business school and introduced me to the head of the MIS department at Georgia College, Dr. Harry Glover. And I ended up transferring into the business school, into the MIS department, and finishing my degree in MIS. And so I have a business degree from Georgia College in management information systems. So I was there studying, went and knocked on doors of the local computer companies. Hey, I'm this young kid. I need a job. We'll work for food. And like, nobody would hire me. And luckily this one secretary, I wish I remember her name, at a company, like, took pity on me. And the guy who would have hired me was there and made Eddie come out and see me. And so my first IT job was because she was willing to take this dumb, I'm sure I was on a t-shirt and shorts when I showed up. Like, you're totally unprofessional. Met the gentleman who hired me. And so I went to work at an IT company my junior year. And about half of my junior year, I began taking night classes down at the Air Force Base. You used to drive on the Air Force Base and take classes with what they call the non-traditional students. And I worked full time. So I worked full time, Monday through Friday for this IT company, finishing my degree at night. And so I graduated while working there. So by the time I got done, I had almost 2 years of experience installing, servers and low voltage cabling and PCs and repairing things and installing Cisco system switches and 3Com phone systems. And so that was sort of my, starting point. Was just, I stumbled into it. I love fixing things. I love fixing computers. Didn't know you get a job doing it. And so I got really fortunate that I had some professors that took pity on me and let me graduate. I still go back and speak at Georgia College. I love going back and talking to the classes. And I do some things around interviewing for them still, for Dr. Getty, who's the head of the department now. But really just, I got really lucky that people saw something in me, willing to give me an opportunity, and then I said the entrepreneurial seizure really was hey, I think I can do this on my own. And so I literally just hung out a shingle and left. So, but I got there, there's no linear path to get there. I think you sort of, I got there because I got lucky, but I also think because I was really, I always focus on other people. So I think that sort of goes back to the same thing for me, was that idea of I love being of service, and it just worked out that technology was where I got to do it.
Honestly, that's pretty cool that you kind of found your path through. Honestly, I realize like a lot of people's paths come from like seeing other people do it, or at least having it brought to your attention. Yep. Like, if you don't know what's out there, you might not end up doing it. But I like the fact that in college you were able to go and see, that side of people who are actually doing it. And then you basically change your whole major. You're able
Oh
to
no, I literally got, I got dropped my first week on the job. I got handed a server and a Novell 312 installation, like a set of CDs and this little instruction manual, and say, go install this. You'll figure it out. This is like before Google, right? It's like BG. Like there was no Googling it. There was no interwebs to go look it up. I was literally walking in with a giant manual trying to install it. So like I got fire hosed and I just found it fascinating. And I decided I wasn't gonna let it beat me. And I think that's the way I always look at technology, is like, I'm not gonna let it beat me. Like it's ones and zeros. It's very binary. It either works or doesn't work. And so I think for me, it became very, much a challenge. But yeah, so getting to see people do it, have people willing to help, truly help first, help me learn to do that. That was, that was a blessing. Again, just people that are, that were willing to take this dumb kid and like help him sort of along the way. And I just kept showing up. I kept showing up and like, if they said show up at 2 a.m., we're going to install computers tonight before the business opens, I was like, okay, let's go.
That excitement to learn.
Yep.
That's amazing. So what are some of your thoughts, comments, and concerns that are going on within the industry now? This could be positive or negative.
Gosh, I always said the only thing inevitable is change. And if you don't love change, learn to love irrelevance. And that's technology in a nutshell. Like we are in a constant state of change. So I think that, the good is, I think that change will always be there. Technology is here to stay. And I think we as technologists, people in the industry, will always have a home and a value in an organization. Now, will it change? Yes. So what I did and what we're doing now are the same thing. So I think that, the advent of sort of, module-based programming, being able to reuse code and sort of do a lot of web-based programming really is an interesting concept. I think that I think blockchain is, I think we still have yet to even begin to take advantage of all the things blockchain can possibly do for us. I think it's not just a cryptocurrency. The entire idea of, a self-validating asset control is definitely amazing for me. I think the struggle with cybersecurity. So I think blockchain programming on the good side, fascinated with that. Cybersecurity, I think that we continue to resist a lot of what we need to do. I think we're very complacent. People don't like security because it can be complicated and cumbersome. And my answer is security is not meant to be simple; it's meant to be secure. And so I think this move towards zero trust in our world, where we trust nothing, everything's presumed to be a risk, is still there. And I think we're going to be in a constant evolution of that, right? And security is an onion, right? We just keep adding layers. So I think if anybody was going to go into a space, cybersecurity is absolutely a fascinating and lucrative component of technology right now, because there's a massive amount of securing we need to do for the last 40 years of us being horribly insecure with passwords and bad data, hygiene. So right now when I look at technology, I look at the blockchain world, like fascinating, cool stuff we could start doing with like property. There's in South Africa, they're starting to your titles and deeds. So we have them in a book in the courthouse, right? If you want to prove you own a piece of property you're sitting in, you go to the courthouse and pull up this book, and they're like, yes, here's the thing you signed. We're talking about South Africa. The idea is using blockchain. Like that acre is now registered in a blockchain and it's registered to you, and you've got the key. You now have asset control of that acre of land. I think there's some value in the idea of digitizing this arcane property ownership piece. And so that a friend of mine's working on that in South Africa. So I find that fascinating.
Well, that is really like important. Like I heard about that a while ago. Like people were actually selling like real estate using blockchain because it's just like it's ownership. So
that's like an NFT. All of that is an interesting place. So yes, some guys out of Mercer University here went to South Africa, but have been working on this concept of how we it's called land something. I can't remember the name of the company now, but they're working on that idea of how do we do that? We transfer asset ownership just from like I said, like an NFT basically.
Yeah. And like the cybersecurity aspect, it's like even with all the privacy laws, people want their stuff protected, but they don't want it to be too protected where it's really an issue that they can't even access it
Yep.
easily. So, but I mean, you kind of have
Yeah, when your
to.
mom and dad start calling you, want to know what should I do? Like, yeah, it's complicated. It's definitely an interesting, I think but again, where there's mystery, there's margin. Where there's mystery, there's opportunity. When there's complexity, there's opportunity. So I think if you're in the tech space, I'm a huge, you take advantage of the opportunities.
Oh, okay. So how can others get to where you are? Like, what are like a few tips? Let's say about 3 tips
Three
that they can
tips.
use.
So have a passion. So you've got to be passionate about something, right? And it can't be making money. Making money is an outcome of being successful. So there's a book by a gentleman named Bob Berg called The Go-Giver. And so it's about the idea of being focused on others. So first of all, you got to have a passion. You've got to want to serve others. If you do that, there's a value to it. So I think first of all, so money's the outcome, but having a passion, I think being focused on long-term growth and maybe not short-term pleasure, right? So I think there's a weighing point. We've got a lot of people who are job hopping and job changing right now, and loyalty is becoming near zero. I mean, and again, I don't begrudge people the idea of moving for more money, but I think you got to ask yourself the question like, hey, if I take this next jump, is it really a move up or a move forward? Am I running to something or running away from it? So I think finding some long-term thinking around what am I trying to do for my long-term, building my long-term skill set. Am I going to be a deeper technologist? Do I need to want to move up management or my soft skills? So being clear about that plan of where you want to go. And then I think, look, everyone's journey is unique. And I think being an entrepreneur is basically 7% of the population should be an entrepreneur. The other 93% should be working with entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurship is not for everybody, but I think you can be an entrepreneur. Like you can be passionate about growth and change, but maybe not be an entrepreneur. So being clear about what it is that you're trying to do. So there's nothing wrong with having a long career with an organization and building longevity and really thinking about the long tail of it. And the fourth thing, you asked for three, but I'll give you a fourth one: pay yourself first. I think that's the number one rule in my life is pay yourself first. So when you get $1 from that business, it is, am I investing that first dollar in some skill improvement? Am I setting aside that first dollar for my long-term, my retirement, my some long-term goal? But paying yourself first and staying out of debt, staying away from the idea of that, again, short-term thinking of I'll go get the car and put it on a mortgage rates are back at 6.5%. So we're heading it. Money's no longer free. So I think just being idealistic of pay myself first, train myself to make myself better, or save for myself first. That would be the other thing. Even as an entrepreneur, pay yourself first.
Oh, I do like those tips. This is one of those episodes where it's just like I'm gonna go back and watch it. I need to take some notes myself. So, all right. So, what is a motivating and insightful quote that has helped you along your journey and kept you pushing?
I mean, I hate to pay it. The only thing inevitable is change. If you don't love change, learn to love irrelevance. And so I'm an agent of change. I stay very focused on the idea that when I don't like something changing, it's probably because I've become comfortable with it, and it benefits me, or it's good for me, or it's comfortable for me, and maybe that's not the right answer. I mean, being uncomfortable is part of the journey we're on. And so I think that's probably one of the biggest one. I'm blessed now. I live what I call my perfect life, and so I've been where I am now is I spend 100 days a year with my family. I spend 100 days a year profitably, so working for profit, and I spend 100 days of the year with the community that I am blessed to be able to serve, doing things like this. And if you could do math, I get to spend 65 days of the year doing whatever the hell I want. And so I have a perfect world where I give my family the first 100 days. I love making money. I love being purposeful. So I go work. I give 100 days of my year to the community, and then I spend 65 days a year playing golf and goofing off and doing other things. And so I think those are the two big things, like having a plan for your life. That's the way I try to live it.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for coming on the episode. And I'll make sure to include your links in the show notes and also the books
Absolutely.
that you referenced because the E-Myth is like one of my next upcoming books on my reading list. So I'm going to make sure to go through and include your books in
I'm a
there.
massive book nerd. Please, anybody want to reach out? Happy to share book ideas. I love to read. I read about a book a week, so I'm constantly reading books. So I'm happy to share ones that I think that are of value. So, Shai, thank you for letting me be part of this. I can't end this without saying how impressed I am with the journey you've taken and where you've come from when we first talked and you were trying to go to where you are now and where you're trying to push your career and your desire to impact the world at large along. And I can't wait to see where you end up. And I can't wait to hear more from you. So again, congratulations. Very impressed with where you are and can't wait to see what's next.
Oh, thank you so much. And I hope to have you again on the podcast. This is an amazing episode. You provide so much value. Honestly, like you are one of my inspirations when it comes to going throughout my career because it's just like, how did you do it? I need to understand. So, but
Glad I could share a little.
like, thank you. So thank you guys for tuning into today's episode. You gained some knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to be insightful in technology. And make sure to tune in every Thursday and subscribe to the podcast and look at the show notes because there's valuable information in there. And thank you guys for tuning in.